And I am here today with Janelle Rock, who is an educator and also an entrepreneur. And she's also a board member of BU, Black Edfluencers-United. So I'm so happy. Thank you, Janelle, for taking the time out to chat with me tonight.
Thank you for having me, Sylvia.
Oh, so my pleasure. So for those who don't know you, let's just start from the beginning. Like, who is Janelle Rock? I know you're from New York. Well, you live in Brooklyn now, but like, where are you from?
Where am I from? Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Janelle Rock, and I am originally from Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights. I actually live in Crown Heights, so I still live in the same neighborhood where I was born and raised. I was born to Caribbean parents, so my father is Jamaican, and my mom is from Trinidad. My mom and my grandmother actually raised me, and my grandmother, she's from Barbados. So what Caribbeans would say is a callaloo. I'm mixed up. I have all these different islands all mixed up in together. And so I definitely carry lots of, the culture and the customs of the islands that I represent.
I love that. I heard that word before, but I never knew what it meant.
Yeah, it's a food that actually, it's so funny. Like, you know how the islands will have different kinds of foods, but they might call it something different. It's the same thing, or it has the same name, but they prepare it differently. So yeah. Jamaica and Trinidad both have a dish called callaloo, but they're prepared completely different. And so the Trinidad style callaloo is the one when you tell somebody, oh, your callaloo is like, because you mix all kinds of things in there. It is like, so it's like all this stuff is mixed up in there to make a very tasty dish. So yeah.
I like that. Oh, so I think not everyone, but like most of us are all mixed. At this point, we have everything in us.
Yes.
Great. Because if we were all the same thing, that would be so boring.
I'm telling you, my aunt used to say that. She says, if we were all the same, what's the point of having, 6 billion people? We should all die and just have one. I'm like, oh yeah, that's boring. I did my ancestry a few years ago and found out that my background, 80% is from Ghana. And that's actually the first place I ever visited when I crossed the Atlantic.
Oh.
Yeah. So in that question, who am I? I definitely, recognize that as the appointed moment in my life for sure.
Wow, that's amazing. And did you go through that point of no return in Ghana?
Oh, you know what? I did not. That is one. I was there for 2 weeks. And I did not go to that one site. I mean, I went all through Accra and Kumasi, the Ashanti town, and Ashanti region rather. And I didn't, that's the one place I didn't go to. So I have to go back.
So now you have a reason to go back.
Yes, I have to go back.
Exactly. So what I want to know and what people may want to know is how did you get into teaching? Because you started out as a teacher, is that correct?
Yeah, so I started out, I remember when I was a senior in undergrad, I attended New York University, and my senior year, you kind of have to go to this loan exit meeting. And my journey into becoming an educator wasn't one where, I always wanted to be a teacher. Although I was an only child and I used to teach my teddy bears like on the bed because I didn't have any brothers or sisters to play with. But
doing that.
I remember when I was in college, I wanted to, travel and model and do those types of things. But I knew that education was important because I had Caribbean parents, and if I didn't get a degree, I'd be in big trouble. But all that being said, I went to a loan exit meeting and I learned that as an educator, you can actually teach in a neighborhood that needs teachers and you can actually get your loans forgiven. And I had loans. I didn't have an exorbitant amount of loans, but I had about almost $30,000 in loans. So I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do after school. So let me do this. And actually turned out to be a very much a journey of discovering me and, you know, what my purpose is, and realizing that I was born to teach.
Aw,
And
so happy you chose teaching.
oh yeah, I mean, I
Passionate at
it was
it.
really quite an experience. I actually ended up teaching through the Teaching Fellows program, but I was able to advocate for the school that I wanted to teach at, and I ended up teaching at my old elementary school,
Get
which,
out.
yeah, like it was in Crown Heights, PS 161.
Wow.
Um, and I ended up not just teaching at my old elementary school, but I taught first grade in my old first grade classroom for 2 years.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
precious.
And my first grade teacher, she had a little office in the back. So she would like always observe and give me feedback. I mean, like by year 3, I had enough materials.
Mm,
Like people, you would think I was teaching for 30 years because all my old teachers were retiring. They were giving me all this.
that's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost like teaching chose you. Like you didn't choose teaching, teaching chose you.
You are so right. You're
Yeah.
so right. It was just such an experience. I think even when you teach young people, you come in. I know initially as a new teacher, I came in thinking like I have all this knowledge to share, but you learn that there's so much that they can teach you.
Hmm.
You know, and I think that's just that's definitely one of the joys of teaching. And the other joy is when you see your babies. You know, I used to call them my babies, they're all grown up. So all my little 6-year-olds, one of them, she just graduated from college, and she's off to become a speech pathologist. And I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
she's like a
Aw.
grown person. I remember when she was a baby. So yeah, it's very much fulfilling, and I'm very glad that I've been able to take you know, my experience working with young people, and you know, that has evolved to working with teenagers and adults, and just really just made for a well-rounded experience as an educator as well as a learner, because I think you can't be an educator if you don't also identify as a learner.
Hello. I know that's right. And um, so you were in the profession teaching for 20 years, was it around?
No, I wasn't a teacher for 20 years. I've been in the I guess the area of education in, you know, different fields for next year will make 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
we were kind of like on the same, at the same pace.
Hmm.
Um, but over the past 20 years or so, being around education, being in education and around education, and me myself, I've been in and out of like K-12, higher ed. You know, I did some reading first work, you know, which was a federal grant. You've seen so much reform. You know, we saw No Child Left Behind, you know, in 2001. Then we saw Race to the Top.
Hmm.
And we've seen so many reforms in education, so much changes like every 10 years and every 5 years, you know, things could really turn over. But what never seems to change, or what kind of remains unaddressed in education, despite all of the reform, is you know, the curriculum, the Eurocentric curriculum. And also, they never really put in like group economics, financial literacy, things like that. Like, and when we write curriculum, we're always asking, what do students need to know? What must students know and be able to do?
Yeah,
But we never really teach them, you know, what they really need to know and be able to do, which is financial literacy.
yeah, yeah. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's my mission in life. I founded an organization officially 2.5 years ago, called Generation Wealth. But really and truly, this has been, I would say, my baby since I started teaching. I remember when I was working on my first master's thesis, it was looking at the role of financial literacy in the elementary early childhood classroom. And I did work with my 6-year-old students and teach
Wow.
them basic financial literacy principles and entrepreneurship principles. And these 6-year-olds, they were able to come up with simple business plans and they were able to make decisions about saving and spending and investing. They understood profit, revenue, loss at 6 years old. And so, I remember surveying parents, teachers about, how important did they think it was for students to learn financial literacy or to become financially literate, and when should they start learning it? And in that survey that I did, it was unanimous, like they should learn as early as possible. And yes, it is important. Yet you still hear the question, why isn't this taught in schools? Right? Here, if you're, if you've ever seen anything around financial literacy, you must be familiar with the work of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That book changed my life when I was 17 years old. Like, I'd never been the same after reading that book. Wow. And it started me on my quest towards financial independence, because I understood that money is a tool that can actually serve you, or you can serve it. And in schools, they don't teach you how to be a master over your finances. And it's really a disservice that we're doing to our students, especially our Black and brown kids. Okay, we're not teaching them how to be owners, how to be entrepreneurs, how to really to think, quote unquote, outside the box. Although I say there's no box, no bar, no limit, those things don't even really exist. But if we were to use that term, think outside the box in terms of what does it mean to be successful, and you, especially in this particular day and age, you cannot just depend on a job to be your only source of income. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having a job. What I'm saying is that we have a responsibility to own our personal economy. And as educators, we have a responsibility to make sure that young people understand how to create that foundation so that they can own their personal economy when they graduate.
And that's the key to empowerment.
That's it.
Yeah, we should be teaching kids how to be empowered and how to build competitive communities. It's almost like we're stuck if we can't do that. I remember when I was an undergrad and I was in one of my communication courses, and it was a media course, and we were watching the news. We had to watch the news together. And the part when they show the Dow and the New York State Stock Exchange came on, and the professor stopped and he said, "Does anyone know what they're looking at?" And no one raised their hand. And I was the only Black person in the class. So even all of these white people, didn't even know. And, we were undergrads at that point in time. And he didn't even stop to explain. So I don't even know if he knew, but he just went on with the course. But it's stuck with me, to this day, that I
just stop to explain it. Oh my gosh. Why ask the question if you're not going to explain it for half the people who don't know it? Maybe he didn't know what it was either.
Right, but we were critiquing the news. So, and when I read this book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America by Claude Anderson, and I saw it on your bookshelf. I know this is one of your books. In chapter 4, and on page 91, he says, what does he say here? He says a lot in this book.
Yeah, like literally a whole plan.
Yeah,
in terms of job creation, education, it's very, very detailed.
In this one, on page 91, I found it. He's talking about empowering Black children. And he said they must know how to compete for wealth and power rather than poverty and acceptance, and to produce rather than to consume, and to be job producers rather than job seekers. So it's almost like the school system was not designed to do this. It's like, we say our schools are failing, but are they failing if they were designed to keep our Black and brown children as servants or workers for the greater white community?
Yeah, it definitely requires a paradigm shift in the way we think about how we're educating our students. And yes, the school system is not broken. It is doing what it's designed to do.
Right.
And however, as we operate now in this system and we recognize where the challenges, where the problems, where the where it's broken, we have a responsibility, of course, to say something about it and do something about it. And that's one of the reasons why I love what Black Influencers United stands for, and the work that we're doing for in terms of serving Black educators, influencing others, because educating a child is is not the responsibility of one person. And even if you aren't, if you aren't Black, or if you still, we have over 80% of the teachers that work with our young people, they're white females, right? And so we have a responsibility to help them understand how to teach our kids in a way where we're getting through to them, right? And then of course all of this is with the end goal of making sure that we positively impact our children. And it's my hope, especially with Generation Wealth, so to get to the place where we no longer say, why don't they teach this in schools? No, we're going to start saying, finally they teach this stuff in schools, right? And starting to shift our thinking about, okay, well, when we're teaching ELA, when we're teaching social studies, math, it doesn't have to be one additional thing. Because I understand as a teacher, there's so many different things that you're responsible for, then these different changes, but good teaching is good teaching. And good teaching requires that you make sure that you are preparing this child for this world outside where they can compete with everyone else successfully, right? Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, okay, we got to teach now financial literacy in addition to all of these other things, but how do you integrate these financial literacy principles into the existing curriculum? Because it lives in social studies, science, math, ELA. It doesn't have to be something extra, but and also I think one of the challenges is that as adults, teachers, just because you're a teacher doesn't mean that you're not struggling in certain areas. And one of the challenges with teaching finances in school is that many educators feel like they themselves have challenges personally with how they're managing their own finances, right? So there's this level of insecurity around, okay, I'm not really doing so well. I don't even really know what I'm doing with my money. How am I going to teach the young people what to do with their money, right? And so that's where organizations like Generation Wealth comes in, and we work with teachers to help them understand, okay, look, this is how you can teach this content, but also looking at, hey, you can use this information to also set your financial plan on a better course.
Right.
Just because you're not comfortable with it doesn't exempt you from teaching it.
It helps everyone. Yeah. Exactly. Not just Blacks, but Blacks and whites. And you mentioned BU. So for those who don't know, BU is an acronym for Black Edfluencers United. And BU recently, maybe a month or two ago, had their launch event. And the president of BU is Dr. Shango Blake. And he talked about how white supremacy is at the root of the educational system. And the purpose of BU is to kind of get at the root, to root out the white supremacy, because our kids are suffering. We suffered through it. Our kids are suffering. But if it wasn't for white supremacy, there would be no implicit bias, there would be no white privilege, and then there would be no lack of a culturally responsive, sustaining pedagogy that's needed, and all of the disproportionality that you just mentioned, the 80% white female teachers. There's so much work that we have to do around unity and collective work and coalition building and BU. And, it's just the perfect organization for Black educators, to be a part of. And that's something also that's kind of mentioned in this book. Like, to me, it all comes full circle, the group economics. you know, so not just being financially literate on an individual level, but as a group, you know, how does this support our community? You know, how do we uplift excuse me, the Black community? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so funny because in that book, Dr. Claude Anderson, he talks a lot about other ethnic groups and how they practice group economics. And I don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to use the exact numbers, but I do remember if you're comparing Caucasian,
Yeah.
Asian, and Jewish group, the dollars that they have within their community exchanges hands more times in white, Asian, and Jewish groups than in the Black community. The Black community, it may circulate 6 times before it then leaves to go into someone else's hands. And we need to really rein that in. And it's, you know, so much of just the systemic racism, right? That definitely doesn't work in our favor. And I can go off on a tangent. I don't want to go that way. But what I will say that there's so much power in practicing group economics. I'm actually teaching a master class that is all about how to use group economics to your advantage, right? So if you're not familiar with group economics, it's basically the practice of pooling or bringing together resources, land, money, so that you're able to purchase more on a bigger scale, right? So imagine if, you know, in your community, you might see a multi-family home and it's going for $200,000. And you don't have that $200,000 sitting in a bank, or you don't have that type of equity. But if you now are part of an investment group, right, or investment club, which is basically founded on the basis of group economics, you all can now pool your resources together to then buy that building in your community, and then you can repurpose it so that it's serving the community, but it's also helping you build wealth collectively, right? And so those are the things that we need to be teaching our kids in schools. But the thing is that many of us don't know that. So we need to learn that too, right? So it's twofold.
Yes, yes. And I know you mentioned Jews, they do that. You know, they have their own hospitals, their own schools. And, you know, it's like nothing, you know, for them to keep that money in their community. And I think they even teach cooperative economics in their schools.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not like a dirty word or anything. So when we do it, you know, when we propose to do it at the state level, you know, it shouldn't be frowned upon. Like, you know, why do Black people want to do this? Because we know every time in history, when we look back, and Black people have done it prior to desegregation, you know, when we had our own communities, you know, by law, we had to be in our own communities. You know, there was Black Wall Street, there was Rosewood in Florida, you know, these thriving Black communities, lots of thriving Black businesses. And the money did stay in the community. But as soon as we did that, you know, we see what happens. The white supremacy, you know, took over and destroyed it, basically.
Yeah.
That's history. Those are facts. We're just talking about facts right now. Yeah. So and when we think about, so after 2020 and after the coronavirus pandemic, now there's even more reform. They're saying we need to restructure our schools and rebuild our schools. So, you know, when we do rebuild our schools, now, you know, it's kind of happening now. I know some things are happening in Albany in New York State at the legislative level.
Yep.
And we have a new chancellor in New York City.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just so excited when I actually saw that. She was the first Black female chancellor. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that the future is definitely bright for us. And I think when you have organizations um, like BU and ABEN, a Black, Education Network, coming together, other organizations coming together, and we're really starting to organize um, not just amongst ourselves, but now we are organized in terms of making sure that we can influence policy, right? So influence policy so that we have a say, we have a seat at the table in terms of what kind of laws are being passed as it pertains to the quality of education for our students, right?
Yeah.
I'm excited that we're even starting to have conversations about integrating financial literacy uh, standards, not so much. So right now in New York State, as it stands, every child in high school must take one semester of economics. And economics and personal finance they're related. They're like cousins, but they're not the same, right? And so if you're looking at macro and microeconomics, you look at personal finance, two different things, and they're both important. And what we've been advocating for is to be able to see New York, which is known as the financial capital of the world, join there's only 6 other states in the union right now that require students to take a semester of personal finance before they graduate from high school. So yes, a semester of econ, but they also need a semester of personal finance in high school, right? And you're looking at middle school, elementary schools. How do you then take these principles and integrate it into the existing curriculum, right?
Right.
But there are some explicit things that young people need to know before they graduate on how not just to manage your money, right? So not just to let's say you're working a job and you're making $1,000 a week. So not just managing the $1,000 so that you are ready to get the next $1,000 next week, but it's managing towards financial independence. That's where we need to be moving towards, right? Financial independence is being able to have enough passive income, so building those passive income streams that can cover and eventually exceed your monthly expenses. And this is not so that you can leave your job, because if you love your job, don't leave. Right? But now you created options for yourself. Yes. Because God forbid something happens like, another pandemic, right? Or you lose your job. Not only do you have your 6 to 9 months of emergency funds set aside, but you also have passive income streams that's making money for you while you sleep. And so you're not losing sleep over if you're able to feed your family because you just lost your only stream of income. And so that's where money management needs to go in these days, because the American dream of the 50s and the 60s, that's done.
That's over with.
Yeah. And if you still think that that's the dream, then you're going to quickly realize that it's not a dream, it's a nightmare if you don't have passive income streams set up.
Right. And if you don't appreciate your community, and if Black people don't appreciate the Black community, they're never going to put that money back into the community, even if they do have passive income, because usually what happens, we want to leave the community,
Make the money and you leave the community.
Right, because they want to say, oh, well, now that I'm successful, I need to live around white people or something like that.
I was just having that conversation.
Putting the money back into the community.
Yeah, and it's okay to have a nice house, if you want to live in a different neighborhood. But my middle school, I went to K through 12, all public New York City public schools. And my middle school, I went to Philippa Schuyler, IS 383. It was a performing arts school for the gifted and talented. Oh. And our motto was, to whom much is given, much is required. And I'll always remember that, right? So I received a great education through the New York City school system. And I graduated, and then I ended up going to New York University. Then I ended up traveling to Africa because I won a beauty pageant, right? And then I ended up studying abroad in another country for a year and learned another language. And all that time, and that's just from age 6 to 22.
Wow.
So all of that I have a responsibility to bring some of that back to my community,
Aw.
right? So then I go back now and I'm teaching at my old elementary school. Teaching fellows was gonna place me at some school in the Bronx. I was like, no, I don't want to teach in the Bronx. I want to teach in my community because my community needs me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I was able to advocate for that. And then I'm starting to see, look, like, my student graduating, becoming a speech pathologist. And, these are the things that make me proud, because I know that those students, they came from right here in this community.
Mm. That's amazing. That's amazing. And the way the school system is set up is based upon merit, almost like a meritocracy. If you get rewarded for with letter grades for your work. But we know America is not really a meritocracy. Like once you leave that, the school system and you go into the real world, America is a capitalistic democracy. So it's so important, like you said, to put money, put those resources, even if it's not money, it's time, it's attention, back into your community. And you've done that beautifully. Thank you for that, for sharing that story. If only everyone did that.
I think, it starts with these kinds of conversations, and I think, even what you bring up about, the way our school system is set up and this dependency, on grades.
Right.
And, when you get out into it's so funny when people say, the real world is like, so, have we been in K through 12 just kind of existing in the matrix, and then we graduate? It's like, oh, we're in the real world, right? So it's all the real world, right? But when, you're not reporting to school every day and, doing work for grades, what is it really? And I think, even when we think about the way that we're educating students, how many authentic learning experiences are we giving them? Right. So, is learning facts to then, pass a state exam, is that really authentic? Is that really how it's going to be when you're out working, or you decide that you want to start your own business? It's okay, so I created my business plan. So don't I get an A for that? Or do I get rewarded with money for that? No, it's really about the effort and the perseverance, and looking at more holistically, instead of looking at these letter grades, like how are you building up the habits of mind, right? How are you building in terms of how you listen, and how you think and cooperate with others and persevere through challenges, because that's what the real world is about.
And you mentioned the habits of mind, and that's an educational term dealing with curriculum writing. And people who don't know you, some people may not know that your internship was under Dr. Heidi Hayes Jacobs.
Oh yes,
She was a renowned educator.
So Heidi, actually, she, how in the age of social media we have these hashtags, right? So she's like my WCW. She was my woman crush. I remember when I was doing my master's, and I read her work around curriculum design, and it just I just like, oh my gosh, like this is what I need to. I understood that if I could design a curriculum for my students, or modify an existing curriculum that was aligned specifically to their needs, then that's where I'm going to start to see the results. And so I just kind of latched onto her work when I was, teaching, and, trying to figure out like how to kind of get my curriculum to align to what my students needed. And then I went into the field of adult education, and I was able to meet her. And long story short, ended up consulting with Curriculum 21 for a number of years. Then through Heidi, I was able to meet Benna, and her and Aunt Costa, they came together to create the Habits of Mind. And so it's really been an honor for me to be around these great minds that really understand and are very thoughtful about what it takes to create an environment that is pays attention to the whole child. And and I love designing curriculum, so it's like play for me.
And in Generation Wealth, you actually have a curriculum. Okay.
Yeah.
And
yes, so we have a curriculum
for children too.
Yeah, so so I guess because I spent so much years as a curriculum designer, it just comes as second nature for me, right? So we have a curriculum where we go into schools and we work with students, middle school and high school, and we're flexible in terms of customizing it based on the time that's available. Every school is different, but we do work around budgeting and investing and like money mindset and the different ways to create income and how to generate passive income. So we do all of that with students, but then we also have courses that we do around stock market investing. So we have a stock market investing course coming up for kids, and that's June 2nd. So it's a 4-week course, and so I mean, I can't imagine, there's no way that this organization could be called Generation Wealth and we're not actually focusing on the generation that's coming up behind us, right? So generational wealth is really about making sure that you're leaving that legacy and you're leaving something behind so that your kids, they don't have to start off from zero, right? But it doesn't, that's only part of the equation. So yeah, you could be leaving a legacy, or leaving wealth behind. However, if you did not take the time to teach them how to handle that wealth, well, chances are by the 3rd generation, all of that wealth that you work for will be gone. So statistics show us that wealth that's passed on to the 2nd generation, 70% of it is lost in the second generation, and over 90% of it is lost in the 3rd generation. So what's going on there? The problem is that the money's being passed on without the values, without the education. And so there's like, oh, my mom or my dad left me $500,000. So I'm gonna just spend it. I'm good. And then before you know it, by the 2nd, 3rd generation, that money's gone. And and we look at, in this country, we're still fighting for reparations. So there's much less of us who are in that situation. And so we're all seem to always be starting from zero, right? And so if you're thinking, okay, I have kids and they're not really teaching this to most likely not teaching this to your 10-year-old or your 13-year-old. So what are you doing to fill that gap, right? So you gotta spend time planning and educating. And Generational Wealth offers all kinds of resources in helping you through that process, that generational wealth process.
And we just may get reparations. So if we do get reparations, our kids need to know what to do with this money, how to invest this money, how to stretch it out, how to make it last. There's so much to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we're living in some exciting times. I feel like, almost every day is like a page for the history books. There's always something amazing or crazy that happens. But I mean, what a time to be alive. And I'm grateful to be here in this moment, in this season, and seeing that the conversation around reparations is actually happening, and generation wealth could be positioned to help many Black families through that process so that they're good stewards over what they're responsible, what they've been given. But until that happens, let's see how you can be a good steward over what you have in your hands, right? Yeah.
Right. And there's a comedian who said, if Black people get reparations, he said it ain't gonna do nothing but make Cadillac richer, something like that.
Who said that?
I'm some comedian. It's just a poor taste, off-color joke.
I mean, and what that comment really does speak to the lack of financial education.
Right, exactly. And right, like what do you put that money into? A car? So most people think, oh, if I have a car, then I'll be doing fine. But that's not really going to get you wealth, as opposed to buying property or stocks, the things that you are teaching. And I caught a couple of your live events, and I was just so touched. I was so tickled by the one on storytelling on Sunday.
Oh yeah, Storytime Sunday.
All around all the books, the picture books, because I was a school librarian. I read so many.
Yes, that's your background.
Yeah, to kids, and I never thought to do a series, or a unit on financial literacy, and pick books that teach kids how to save money,
Mhm.
Yeah, what was that about? How did you come up with that and how did it turn out?
Oh my gosh, so it was so funny. So I was actually speaking to a friend of mine, and she lives in Canada, and she has two little ones, and they keep her very busy. And she, helping me with some work with Generation Wealth. And so we were talking. This was like, I want to say the middle of March, and then April is Financial Literacy Month. So I was thinking, I really want to do a lot of different events, and even especially for not just for adults but also for kids in just building awareness around financial literacy. And I was like, maybe we should just read stories. And at first we were thinking about doing it like once a month, right? Indefinitely. And then I was like, she said, well, you don't have to stick with the same thing for so long of a period. She said maybe it'll be more impactful if it was just one particular month. And I was like, we can do finance in observance of Financial Literacy Month. We could do Storytime Sundays, select 3 books that deal with certain personal finance principles, and read and talk about it. So we did one on differentiating between needs and wants. We did another one on saving, and we did another one on investing. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Was one Pete's chair? Pete's chair?
A chair for mom.
Oh, a chair for mom. Okay.
Yes, a chair for mom, and that was all about saving. And then we did one, Wesley Learns to Invest. So that was about investing. So yeah, so I'm hoping that maybe we can do something like that again in the future. But just, I would say, who does I even like story time. I remember when I used to read books to my students in first and second grade, I
Yeah.
was reading and I actually was enjoying just hearing the story out loud. Or if, another teacher came in and was reading a book, there's something just like soothing to being read to. So I think it's even enjoyable for if the parent has to sit with the child or get them on Zoom, it's even, it's enjoyable. It can be enjoyable for the parent. And, maybe there might be something that they can both learn together.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so precious. And even if you could like record them or something or put music to it,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Like I would definitely use that in the classroom. I mean, that's a whole unit that could be used. And if we do get our Black history or our Black studies curriculum, that's got to be in there. That whole piece got to be in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get
Absolutely.
it.
I'm telling you, I don't think we're going to be saying, why don't they teach this in schools for much longer? I really, and I think it's so big that no one person can handle it on their own. Right. And so there, so much great work going on around, financial literacy around the country. But I think that New York can and should do more. Because it's the home of the New York Stock Exchange and
Mhm.
Wall Street, and it's just like for all that goes on here in terms of finances, we should be doing the most.
Yeah,
Literally, we
yeah,
should be doing the most. We should be setting the pace.
absolutely. And that's usually how it works. Like once New York does something, uh, everyone else follows suit.
Yeah,
It certainly happened with no indoor smoking. That's just one example.
that was
Once we
great.
get past that, now every state in the country, right, has banned indoor smoking. So so if we can get that, that new curriculum, that financial literacy curriculum passed, yeah, it'll take off for sure. So how um how can people contact you? Like if people are interested in generation wealth, like what you're talking about, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can definitely go to generationwealth.org, and on our website, we have all kinds of great resources that you can check out. If you want to stay in touch with us, I would definitely recommend that you sign up for our resource library. So we have all kinds of free resources that you can use on, how to get started investing in the stock market, ways to make money while you sleep, resources on how you can help your children grow in their financial intelligence. We even have an interview on there with Dr. Shango Blake, you know, talking about the need for the presence of personal finance in the classroom. So I would definitely
For those who don't
recommend.
know Dr. Shango Blake, he is the president of BU, and he's also he has a website called the Nation's Hip Hop Principal.com, aka Dr. Blizzy.
Yes.
So yeah, that's great, and that certainly gets the word out. And I caught one of your the one you just mentioned on investing in the stock market.
Or investment clubs.
It could have been that. I don't know, but you gave three tips on how to.
Oh yeah. The Facebook Live. Girl, I'm online all the time. I'm always doing
I know. You I was so happy to catch that one because you made it so simple. You know, you was like, first of all, you know, look at what you spend money on. What are you spending a lot of money on? Is it Nikes or is it Pepsi Cola or something like that?
Yep.
And do your research, see if they're publicly traded, if you know, and then
that goes into what Dr. Anderson was talking about, right? So shifting your mindset from a consumer, right, to an investor, or consumer to producer. And so if you're wearing the Nikes, if you're using the iPhone, if you're drinking the Coca-Cola, then you definitely should make sure that you own some shares of stock.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's like common sense. But if no one is telling you that, you know, if no one's talking to you like that, you never think about it, you know? And then you said I think the third tip was to look on their website and look for their stockholders report or something like that.
Yeah, the investor relations report.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the investor relations report will tell you like everything you need to know about the earnings of the company. You'll learn about the leadership, and these are all things that you want to look at if you're thinking about investing in a company. So those, if you all like really like don't know, you want to get started with the stock market, but the whole idea is just super intimidating. The adult class that we have coming up, that's closed now, but we're going to have a self-paced version coming out at the end of June. So you'll actually be able to access the course and you can move at your own pace. And we're looking to also release a similar course for children. So stay tuned, look out for that. But if you have kids, the kids course is not closed. So if you have kids, you should definitely get them signed up for that. And that's at generationalwealth.org/events. What I'll do in the comments, I'll put the link in the comments. I put the link in the comment for the masterclass. As we were talking about group economics. So if you want to sign up for the masterclass, you can do that. But I would say just go to the website. In the website, you can sign up for the resource library. If you want to sign your kids up for the upcoming stock course, that's in the events section. We have a lot of stuff going on our website. So, but it's full of great information, and that's generationwealth.org.
And I so believe in this. Like, and there was recently a kid who got rich. He invested in game something or GameStop. Yeah.
Oh, GameStop. Oh my gosh, that was so crazy. GameStop and AMC.
But it showed you that anybody can do it. You know,
yeah,
his mom guided him, but
it's not as hard. I think it's just it can be a bit intimidating, right? Yeah. And you're dealing with your money, and you're like, I don't know if I want to put my money into something I don't understand, which makes total sense, right? Warren Buffett says, don't invest in something you don't understand. However, you have to make a decision. Like, am I just going to keep saying I don't understand, or am I now going to access the information that I need so that I better understand it, so then I can make an informed decision as an investor? And that's what we want to help. That's what we want to help people do.
And just to call someone an investor, you know, we don't call our kids, you know, it's that positive thinking, that mind shift, and that mindset. You know, you are an investor. And, I remember growing up, my great aunt, she always said, don't keep all your money in one place, or don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, and that's kind of like that early language. of investing. You want to diversify, and you don't just want to put all your money in, like short-term stocks or long-term stocks, or all of your money in real estate. You really should have a few different areas where you're putting your money.
Yeah, and I think we are alive at such an amazing time in history. Okay, I just want to encourage you, before we sign off, don't miss out on what's happening in the world. Like, we have like a whole nother currency that's emerging. And some people think like, oh man, I should have gotten on Bitcoin when it was, 50 cents, or no, like it's just the beginning, and Bitcoin is just one coin. You have Ethereum, XRP, Telcoin, you have all of these other coins that make up the world of cryptocurrency. If you don't understand it, start learning it. Then we have now in the next 5 to 10 years, the cars that we're going to be driving are electric cars.
Right.
So what are some, like, you can start investing in, this is like right around the time when, Henry Ford created, the first automobile. And it's just like, imagine investing in oil back then. Right. So now think about, we have an opportunity to invest in clean energy and, all of these things like now, before it takes off. Like we are living in, I am the most excited investor. Okay, like you don't have to be an accredited investor now to invest in startup companies. You can do crowdfunding. I'm teaching about investment clubs. I mean, there's just so much opportunity. Okay, well, if I can say one last thing before we sign off, is that if you are on the path towards wealth, it starts in your mind. Because you are not going to attract wealth if you are approaching it with a mindset of lack. And it's really important to make sure that you are really attuned to the abundance that's all around you. There is no lack. There's an abundance of everything that you want. You have to really believe that, right? So the as freely as you give is as freely as you receive, right? I know that, if I get like, sometimes you get like these random checks in the mail for like, $10 or $5, like somebody's case was whatever, I take that money and I give it away. I'm just like, it's like, it's not enough to meet a need. So I'm just going to sow a seed.
Right.
Giving is such an important part of wealth building. Think about some of the wealthiest people in the world and think about how much they give. Think about Oprah, right? Prince Harry. You think about these wealthy individuals, LeBron James, they give a lot of money. Like, yes, okay, it is a tax break for them. However, they keep giving and they keep receiving. It's a law. That's not even a religious thing. It literally is a law of giving and receiving. What you sow, you will reap. If you sow nothing, don't expect a harvest.
Like a law of the universe.
Yeah. Like there's nothing to do with religion or anything.
Yeah.
You plant a seed, you get a plant. You plant no seed, you can't expect anything, right? So just focus on the abundance that's around you and tap into it. And whatever you don't know that you want to learn about, there's no excuse. You have YouTube University, you have Generation Wealth, you have Dr. Lloyd, you have Facebook, you have Instagram Lives. The information is all around you, right? You just have to make a decision.
Did say to me, he said, did you notice these Bitcoin people going a little hard? Like they constantly doing friend requests on Instagram.
Oh yeah, the Forex traders. Yeah.
Oh, and I was kind of skeptical. I was like, are these people legit? Like, should we be friending these Bitcoin people online?
Yeah, I mean, I because even with my page on Instagram, generation.wealth, like I'll post a picture and then somebody will make a comment like, oh, I made so much money with this person doing Forex trading. Like, to me, I'm like, you're not making that much money if that's what you have to do to market and get attention, right? And so the people who are really making money, they're not doing it.
Thank you. Yeah. I was like, what's going on here? So yeah, well, it's been an hour now. Are you on Facebook? Can you see like any comments or questions that people have? Because I'm not.
Yeah, I can see. I don't, no questions. I posted two links. The
Okay.
one masterclass and the website. Margaret Cooper says financial information is essential for your future.
Oh,
Free Margaret.
thank you, Margaret Cooper.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well then, did we cover everything? Is there anything that we missed?
No, I'd say, if you want to stay in touch, you want to stay connected, go to generationwealth.org. You can sign up for our newsletter, and definitely try to get plugged into our masterclass. We have one, we did about 3 this month. We're going to do one next month, the one on investment clubs. So, yeah.
And BU for Black educators.
Yes, yes. We, Black Edfluencers-United. I think we have a members meeting coming up tomorrow.
Yes.
If you're not a member, I don't know if you're able to, I don't have the link readily. If we can drop it in the chat, so you can go to the website and learn more about Black Influencers United, and we encourage you to become a member, support this amazing organization and the work that we're doing for our kids and our educators.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janelle Rock.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. I know you have a busy schedule, and you went to dance class today.
Yes, I had a ballet class right before this live session. So you should have seen me.
Wow.
I like had to hurry up and finish class and get ready for this live. But
Thank you
I
for
was
not
not
canceling. Much appreciated.
oh no, I was like, I am not gonna miss this. I'm like, actually left class early just so that I can make it in time. So I'm very happy to have had the opportunity to be
Well,
on.
hopefully we can jump online again and chat again in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.